This is the end of the beginning. Welcome to today's show. If you drink water, you probably want to watch this, but I think in today's society, obviously not the people who listen to this channel, but there's a lot of people out there that don't even realize that they need water to survive. You know, there's people who would probably say, I hate water. Well, they're still getting water from other drink products that they drink. Otherwise, they'd be, dead. But this is something that people should know about as they continue to argue and debate about men getting pregnant or not, and if this is something that's possible. They continue to debate about all sorts of things with castration, just stuff that's literally insane. Our food supply and our water supply is under attack. Yesterday, I made a video covering how they're continuing around the world to just kill off cattle. They're killing the cattle. There's no PETA. There's no organizations that are pro-animal for these types of things where they're slaughtering them, and they're not allowing you to eat the meat, of course. They're just killing them because of the climate. Well, the other thing that's under attack is our water supply. You might remember recently I covered the well pump situation, how they're going to use the climate to go after well pumps. There's other things they're doing to go after the well pumps, and there's other things they're doing to go after city water, which really just means polluting rivers, and we're seeing it over and over again. We have another one in Tennessee that I'll get to in a second. I just want to let everybody know here on the End of the Beginning channel, I started a Patreon page for this channel. Any support for this channel, a lot of people have asked how they could support the channel. Obviously, super chats and things like that, all the money for the most part ends up going to YouTube. So Patreon's a way you could support the channel monthly if you don't want to join the website, etc. If you like this content, obviously I put a lot of time into making content, multiple videos a day here on YouTube. It's just something I'm putting out there if anybody wants to do it. Obviously, a lot of you know there's an old YouTuber with an old channel that had a Patreon as well. I ended up losing a lot of Patreons. A lot of people just don't know, where I'm at or anything like that to become patrons over there. So it just kind of dwindles out. So I just made another one for anyone out there that wants to support. It's the End of the Beginning at Patreon. It's linked below. You can find it if you do a search on Patreon. So any support's always appreciated. Just wanted to throw that out there for everybody in case you had questions about it, because a lot of people have been asking me recently about PayPal and things like that. That's really the only way you could support if you wanted to. So that link is below. So onto this story. Some of you probably haven't heard about this thing called a forever chemical. That's right. In 2023, the narrative is out there about forever chemicals. They're slowly starting to talk about chemicals being, of course, in our well water. Why? Well, they don't want you to drink the well water. In fact, like I covered recently, they're telling us that well pumps, that actually having well water is dangerous to the climate. It's changing the axis of the earth. And so they just make this stuff up as they go, of course. And they make it more important about climate change than actually about us eating food and drinking water. That's not important. Of course, climate change comes first before the most obvious things and that should be just common sense to people, which is eating and drinking. So we have forever chemicals and a threat of forever chemicals out there, which I'll cover in a second. But I want to start with this tugboat in Tennessee. The Tennessee River, this is like the 10th time, obviously, this year we've heard these stories. We had the Ohio River, obviously, with the train that exploded. Our government blew it up. They pretty much locked down the entire town. They went under martial law temporarily, but all the water was contaminated. They came out and said, it's not really a big deal. People were showing, the water was just black. There was things floating in the water that looked like chemical bombs. So the Ohio River's been attacked. The Yellowstone River's been attacked. The Delaware River has been attacked multiple times. The Mississippi River. We see Lake Mead drying up out west. And now we have the Tennessee River because a tugboat has just, sharted its pants and just fallen into the Tennessee River, contaminating the water, of course. But their concern that they're talking about isn't about your drinking water yet, because they're not going to tell you that because people might start getting suspicious. So they're just going to sink these things. We have trains going into water. We have, airplanes flying into food manufacturing plants. We have boats just sinking in water, all this stuff going on. And of course, what did it do? Well, it spilled over 3,000 gallons of diesel fuel into the Tennessee River. The Tennessee River is responsible for about 5 million people's water supplies in the United States of America, and it's the 5th largest river system for drinking water. Take a look what happened there.
Efforts will continue this morning after a tugboat sank in the Tennessee River Sunday, releasing thousands of gallons of diesel fuel into the water.
And that fuel has begun washing up on shore along McFarland Park out in Florence. News 19's Mariah Wiggs is joining us now live at McFarland Park this morning. Mariah, what are some of the immediate impacts that this is having on some park visitors?
Well, Carmen, I can show you better than I can tell you now that the sun has come up. For anybody out there who planned on coming to the beach here at the park, you're going to have to wait a minute. Take a look at this caution tape. Now, the Florence Police Department says that tugboat you mentioned released about 3,000 to 5,000 gallons of diesel fuel. As of right now, emergency management agency officials have encouraged swimmers to stay out of the water until local authorities signify it's safe to re-enter. Florence Lauderdale County EMA says they received a call from a citizen reporting diesel fuel from that was washing up on the shores of McFarland Park around 10 yesterday morning. After obtaining additional information, they discovered it came from the port of Florence. Swimmers described the substance as a bright rainbow color with a bad smell. Some told us the fumes from the fuel on the water were so strong it gave them a headache. Lauderdale County EMA Director George Grabrian says they're taking steps now to limit the spread.
Basically, what's been done is that area has been boomed off to hopefully slow more of that flow, and the owner of that tugboat has got a cleanup contractor coming up here.
At this time, it is unknown what caused the tugboat to sink. Grabrian said that boating will not be affected by the spill, but swimmers will need to wait until authorities are sure the spill is cleaned up before enjoying a day on the river.
So again, very coincidental, right? Now, I get that things do happen. People are like, oh, you can't just say every single thing. Well, when you see a pattern where all these things happen to be happening right by our water supply, and all of these chemicals just float into our water supply, then they come out and they test the water and they're like, well, we're not sure. Oh, you could drink it. And people are doing their own tests, right? Or, like the fires in Canada, which contaminate a lot of water. You don't hear the news talking about that. Of course not. But you see actual civilians who do real news reporting, the ones that they call fake news and misinformation. People are actually holding up, testing meters of seeing what's in the sky, and they're finding formaldehyde and benzene, the same stuff that's in Roger Rabbit's dip, and nobody's suspicious about it, right? And of course, then you have this story about forever chemicals, right? Forever chemicals. No one's ever heard of it, but it's the newest thing. And nobody goes, well, how does that happen? Well, we're going to sue DuPont. Of course, the DuPont's one of the bloodlines of the New World Order. They're going to sue DuPont and all this stuff. But nobody explains why there's chemicals in our water. They just kind of go, well, it seeped into the ground and we'll blame DuPont and stuff like that. How about from the skies and the chemtrailing? Yeah, you know why there's an increase in diseases and why there's an increase in all sorts of psoriasis and skin problems? Look above. Those white things coming out of the buttholes of airplanes. That's not water vapor, that's chemtrails. So now they're making people fearful of forever chemicals. And they want you to know that nearly half of U.S. tap water is infested with forever chemicals. So this is the newest thing that they've come up with. 45% of the nation's tap water could be contaminated with at least one form of PFAS known as forever chemicals, according to a new study by the U.S. Geological Survey.
Just outside of Bangor, Maine, is Herman High School. Some 500 kids come here each day to learn, but they can't drink the water. The fountains taped shut.
We're very concerned.
The school's water recently tested above the state's safety limit for PFAS, often referred to as forever chemicals.
We're not fully understanding why it is in our water and it is at the level that we're at. This is where the water comes in from the well.
Micah Grant is superintendent of schools of the Herman School District. For now, bottles of water are stacked at every fountain.
We want to make sure that they have clean water to drink.
Nearly 30 miles away in the rural town of Unity.
This is the graveyard of our farm business.
9 years ago, Adam Nordell and his wife Joanna bought Songbird Farm.
We thought, wow, this is our spot.
Then it was thriving and lush.
We came to this property to grow healthy, fresh produce to sell to our community.
But that all changed 2 years ago when they learned their soil was toxic.
Our land is severely contaminated with forever chemicals. As soon as we learned, we shut down.
These types of stories are happening across Maine, where farmers, where school children are threatened by the level of PFAS contamination that's in their lands and waters.
Aaron Fry is Maine's Attorney General.
There are farmers who had to euthanize their livestock because of the chemical contamination.
Fry recently filed litigation against several chemical manufacturers, including 3M and DuPont.
We're alleging that 3M and DuPont created these chemicals, had the science that showed just how dangerous they were, how toxic they were, how they were going to last forever. It is my responsibility to do whatever I can to hold accountable those companies that profited off of this chemical.
PFAS, or forever chemicals, are man-made substances that date back to the 1940s. They gained mass attention for their ability to repel water, oil, and stains. And over the decades, they've been used in a wide range of applications, for non-stick cookware and waterproof fabrics, to food packaging, cosmetics, even firefighting foams. But over time, concerns began to rise. According to the CDC, the chemicals do not break down in the environment. They can move through soils, contaminate drinking water, and build up in fish and wildlife.
What are the health risks associated with PFAS chemicals?
We've seen correlations with thyroid disease, certain kinds of cancer, kidney disease, liver dysfunction. They're called forever chemicals because they stay in your body.
Scott Gottlieb is a former commissioner for the FDA.
I think what the government needs to do is step up testing, make sure that we have a better picture of where these chemicals are getting into food sources and the water supply.
Several manufacturers have announced their plans to reduce or discontinue the production of PFAS in the coming years. A 3M spokesperson said in a statement to CNBC, "As the science and technology of PFAS, societal and regulatory expectations, and our expectations of ourselves have evolved, so has how we manage PFAS," adding the company plans to end production of the chemicals by 2025. The company also expressed a commitment in remediating PFAS, investing in water treatment, and collaborating with communities. DuPont, on the other hand, said it has never manufactured the harmful chemicals and believes the legal complaints are without merit. Since 2015, DuPont has gone through spin-offs and a merger, those companies also named as defendants in Maine's lawsuit. Chemours tells CNBC the company pledged in 2018 to reduce PFAS emissions at its manufacturing sites by at least 99% by 2030. Dow denied manufacturing PFAS and stated that it is not alleged to have caused any environmental contamination. A Corteva spokesperson told CNBC it does not comment on ongoing legal matters. On Wall Street, one analyst thinks 3M specifically is facing great financial risk.
At this stage, given valuation and what we know about the PFAS litigation, we do consider 3M to be uninvestable.
According to RBC Capital, it could mean a massive liability of $20 to $25 billion. And that's just the beginning. The company also facing another significant potential liability tied to its military earplugs. Analysts say it could cost 3M up to $10 billion or more. As we reported earlier this year, the suit involves more than 200,000 military service members and veterans who claim 3M's earplugs were defective and led to hearing issues. 3M's response? The earplugs worked when used according to their instructions.
I expect PFAS to be a front-page news item for the next couple of years.
Back at Herman High, a water filtration system is set to be installed over the summer. As for Adam, whose farm was shut down,
This contamination I'm beyond words.
He's since learned his land was spread with municipal wastewater treatment sludge in the early 90s. At the time, marketed to farmers as a free or cheap source of fertilization.
The farmers were told they were fertilizing their crops. Unfortunately, that wastewater is laden with all sorts of industrial chemicals that are leaching out of consumer products.
He's now working for the nonprofit Defend Our Health, its mission to reduce people's exposure to toxic chemicals.
We know there are farms that have spoken out in New Mexico and Colorado and Michigan. There are likely farms in every state that are knowingly or unknowingly dealing with these chemicals.
His message to chemical manufacturers?
They need to step up to the plate and pay for the impact that they've had on the world.
So this is just unbelievable, right? How many things do we have to hear about our food and water supply? But they're going to continue to do this. And of course, this will tie into the climate agenda. This will fit perfectly for them of how they're going to control the food and water supply. Okay, that's what it's about for them. Control the food, control the water, control the people. As these people continue to argue over all these idiotical points, these narcissistic people, eventually we'll get to the point where we don't have food or water, and then they won't realize how we got there, but they'll turn to Big Brother, the one who's responsible for doing all this and causing all this chaos. So The man-made chemicals, of which there are thousands, are found in all sorts of places, from non-stick cookware to stain-resistant carpets to contaminated sources of food and water. They break down very slowly, building up in people, animals, and the environment over time. Research has linked exposure to PFAS to adverse health effects in humans, from an increased risk of certain cancers, increased obesity, and high cholesterol, decreased fertility, and developmental effects like low birth weight in children. It's pretty hilarious that they're admitting to these things being in the water. Of course, they're not talking about fluoride. They're not talking about how they're the ones putting it in there. And of course, the zombies we live amongst, nobody's looking around going, how come nobody can get pregnant anymore? Right? They don't realize, well, look above, look at the food, look in the water. Go take that potion, and you'll realize why men and women can't have babies anymore, because that's another way that they depopulate, right? So they'll admit to, water being contaminated. Of course they will, but they won't admit to who's responsible for it, and they won't tell you to just look above your head, and they won't say, well, these things are in food, and you go, well, why are they in food? Isn't the FDA supposed to read all these ingredients, go through it, test it before they're allowed to put it on shelves? Of course not, because there's weed killer in food, and they get on the shelves, and then the FDA isn't held responsible or accountable. Just like none of the government's held accountable when they're called out for any of the stuff that they do. They just ignore the question and walk away, right? And that's your government at work for you. Of course, they're supposed to be employees of us, yet they're the ones who are trying to kill us. So, the USG study can help members of the public understand their risk of exposure and inform policy and management decisions regarding testing and treatment options for drinking water. The study is the first to compare PFAS in tap water from both public and private supplies on a broad scale throughout the country. It involved testing water samples from more than 700 locations across the U.S. And it comes as the federal government is looking to create new regulations for toxins in drinking water, right? So they're pretty much going to ban well water. That's what this is going to lead to. They're going to tell us that well water is bad. You won't be able to make that decision on your own. They're going to ban wells. Don't think that they haven't thought of this. I mean, look, I've thought of everything to try to work around what they're doing, and I know that they've already thought ahead of that. That's what they do at these meetings, the Bilderberg meetings, et cetera, et cetera. They don't sit there and talk about, oh, we're gonna make a merger, the Sun Valley Conference. We're going to talk about merging Netflix and America Online. Oh yeah. No, they're going to talk about, well, what about these people who are going to try and, have hand well pumps like the Amish have? Oh, well, we're going to have, our military go around to their towns and make sure that they don't use it. We're going to tell them that it could kill their family and the parents will be responsible. So we'll just come in and step right in and take it away, because we won't be able to literally dry out the wells, which is what they would like to do, right? But you can't really literally dry them out unless they just continually cause droughts over like long periods of time. So they're just going to say there's toxins in the drinking water. They're going to ban well water, and they're also going to say that well water is bad for the climate, right? I just covered this with the newest story about well pumps are shifting the Earth's axis. Yeah. So we're not going to worry about the importance of water and food and put these other things to the side where, normal humans with brains would do. They'd say, well, we're not going to mess with the food or the water. You could start arguing about all this other crap if you want, but you're not messing with the food and water. No, they are messing with it. And people are going to agree because it's in the name of the boogeyman, the climate. So the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency issued drinking water health advisories for two of the most prevalent compounds in June 2022, warning that they pose health risks. That's PFOA and PFOSs, by the way. That they pose health risks even at levels so low that the government can't detect them. So, for one, they said it highlights the importance of collecting PFAS data for private wells, which are monitored at homeowners' discretion and not regulated by the EPA the way the public sources are. It also has implications for the general population. So, the studies found that most state and federal monitoring programs typically measure exposure to PFAS and other pollutants at the water treatment plant or groundwater wells that supply them. They said the USG's studies specifically focus on collecting water directly from a homeowner's tap where exposure actually occurs. So you see where this is going? Instead of saying, well, where's the water getting filtered? Blah, blah, blah. No. Your direct tap. They want even control of that. And people shouldn't be surprised because they literally don't want you to be able to start your fireplace in your home because they say it's dangerous. They don't want you to be able to turn the air or the heat on in your home because, well, that'll affect the climate. That's not fair to the energy levels and other people out there who can't afford it. I mean, they just make this stuff up as they go, which you clearly can see if you have a brain. So now they're talking about being able to monitor the water at a home level, at a sink level. What was the exact quote? Let me reread that. They say it actually at the homeowner's tap. So they want to be able to monitor at the homeowner's tap so they can come in and they can say, well, this is forever chemical in your home. Okay, you're not going to be allowed to use this water. It's a danger to your health and your family and your neighbors and everyone else. So do the right thing. We're going to shut your tap down. But don't worry, we have water for you. Of course, it's poison water, and not just filled with fluoride, filled with everything you could possibly imagine. And it's the real forever chemical water. But even on top of it, the narrative out there, oh, people are suing the chemical companies and et cetera, et cetera. Why don't they look into who runs the chemical companies? Why don't they look into where the chemicals are coming from? Because it's not just coming from, the farmers and putting soil down. Oh, it's coming from directly above. And that's why people are having trouble farming. Because the crop dusting, aka the chemtrailing from the sky, is affecting their ability to grow crops. Why do you think the government has forced Monsanto onto everyone? Why do you think Disney World had their own Monsanto experiment 20 years ago? Dating myself now, it's like 50 years ago. Right? Monsanto, at the Tomorrowland exhibition at Disney. Monsanto, right? And everyone's forced into Monsanto chemical soil instead of real soil. You see where this is going? The government is taking control of everything, but blaming it on something else. So they're saying, well, we're not trying to force this on you because they know that people would uprise against it. They're saying, this is just what's happening. So we're stepping in. You elected us to be your officials and protect you, so we're going to protect you. But they're the ones who are really poisoning us. So we have the Tennessee the tugboat sinking into the water, the Tennessee River. About 5 million people drink from that water, probably more, of course. And the focus is on people at the beach, probably, right? As you heard one of the guys, well, we got to make sure you wash yourself after you're in the ocean. How about in the river swimming for your July out swimming in the river? Be careful, just wash yourself after swimming in diesel fuel. How about drinking too? That's a concern, but people don't think that far. I guess people think that the water that comes out of their faucet just comes out of thin air, that it's magic water and that it would never be poisoned or polluted. That's what they think. And that they'll never have a day where they turn the water and it's not on because they pay their bills, right? Or it's free water, so they'll never have to worry about it. Oh yeah, you do have to worry about it. So stop worrying about nonsensical issues that are distractions and start worrying about the most important thing to keeping yourself alive, which is food and water. I thank everyone for being here. Again, there is a new Patreon link below if you're interested in supporting the channel. It's not a big deal if you don't. But obviously restarting the channel takes a huge hit on me. Creating this content, having the time to create the content because, lots of reasons behind it. So I'm trying my best to continue to combat this here. If you want to support it, that's a way that you can. But get the word out there about the what's going on with the water and the food supply. This is all done by design. It's not a coincidence that all these chemicals are getting into our water, whether it's from the fake, the man-made and, fictitious in a sense, fire in Canada that spread so far because there was other things that went into that, to the bomb in Ohio on the train, to what happened in Yellowstone River, to the Delaware River, to the Mississippi River, to whatever river, you name it, to the Tennessee River, all of which are getting contaminated. Of course, these are all things that they could just say, look, these things happen. We can't blame us for it. We didn't sink a tugboat in the Tennessee River. We have no idea how it sunk, but 3,000 gallons of diesel fuel won't kill anyone. Yeah, pretty sick, isn't it? Twisted world we live in. I thank you guys for being here again. God bless all of you and your families.